MBAPPE'S now in charge. There's the front page of AS, the sports newspaper in Spain, as we welcome in Alex Kirkland, of course, was at the Santiago Bernabeu for us yesterday for that opening win for Real Madrid. That didn't answer really, I suppose, Alex, too many questions.
Yeah, it wasn't a classic performance, and this Real Madrid team are very much a work in progress. I guess that's to be expected. They had, 2 weeks of pre-season, haven't had a lot of time. One or two encouraging signs, and people getting very excited about Franco Mastantuono, only just turned 18, came off the bench in the second half and just looked like he belonged at the Bernabeu, belonged in this team. Otherwise, people are really, really excited about Dean Howson. He looked good again at the back. One or two more questions about Trent Alexander-Arnold, a somewhat subdued performance from him again, and Danny Carvajal came off the bench to replace him and got a huge ovation. So popular, of course, at the Bernabeu. So lots of questions. I think it's much too early to sort of draw any kinds of conclusions about this team because, like I say, they are clearly they're not there, and they're not there yet. There's no question about that.
But I suppose the positive, as the front page says, Mbappe in charge. He was the difference, it proved to be.
Yeah, I mean, he looks, if you think back to a year ago, we've talked a lot about how his numbers last year were very good. But remember, earlier in the season, he looked like he lacked confidence. He looked at times a little bit lost. And a year on, he looks a completely different player. I think he looks so assured now. He looks so comfortable in a Real Madrid shirt. There were one or two moments, there was a bit of skill on the touchline that had the crowd kind of oohing and ahhing and kind of gasping at just how confident he looked on the ball. And yeah, he's the main man now. He is. There's no question about that. He's the main man for the team. He's going to be, I think, without question, Real Madrid's best and most important player this season. And like I say, sort of the evolution in him as a presence and as a player in the last year, I think has really been really quite significant. So I think we're seeing a different Mbappe now right from the start.
Meanwhile, even before the start of the Club World Cup, there was speculation about Rodrygo's future. He didn't feature, of course, in yesterday's game. This is what Xabi Alonso had to say about the Brazilian international. It's only a match. If in 3 months he still isn't getting these minutes, then it's different. Nothing's going on. The Club World Cup was a different context because of the competition that it was, but this was just one game. I think we can leave the Club World Cup behind us, and what really counts is this season. And of course I count on Rodrygo. It's just one game. We don't have to read too much into the future, but it isn't one game, and that's the key, isn't it? Rodrygo's just started one match in the last 12, Alex, and I don't think many would be surprised if he leaves. It's all about finding the perfect destination, isn't it? And a club that's going to pay that sort of fee.
Yeah, I've got to say, I don't think even Xabi Alonso believes what he's saying there. I think this was quite a message for Rodrygo. If the message hadn't got through already, I mean, it's not just that he's not getting picked on the right-hand side because Brahim Diaz started this game on the right. He's not even the first alternative because it's Mastantuono who came off the bench on the right, a position that Rodrygo doesn't even want to play in. On the left, when Vinicius Junior came off, it was Gonzalo Garcia who came on and played on the left with Mbappe inside. So, time and time again, Xabi Alonso is telling Rodrygo that right now, it's not that you're not first choice, you're not even second choice or maybe even third choice. And I mean, the question will be, you talk about sort of destinations, the question will be, as it has been right the way through this summer, well, where are the offers? They haven't come in yet. And when the offer comes in, it's got to be an offer that's acceptable to Real Madrid and acceptable to the player and a club that Rodrygo wants to go and play for. And I think his sort of perception of himself and the sort of level of player that he is and where he would like to play, there aren't many clubs, I think, that fit that criteria. So that's been the case all summer. Like I said, there hasn't been any movement there in terms of offers for the player and sort of concrete interest in the player. But right now, I'm not sure it looks like this situation is sustainable because if last season, at times he was sort of on the outside under Ancelotti, it looks like that's even worse now under Xabi Alonso so far.
Meanwhile, Alex, we heard it in that commentary. Flicky flacker's not a thing, is it? Please tell me it's not.
I've got to say, I haven't heard that term used here. That's a new one. I heard that as well. That's a new one for me.
For Barcelona, though, it's kind of like, despite everything that was going on off the pitch that we discussed over the last couple of months, on it, they kind of continued where they left off.
Yeah, look, they're the team to beat, aren't they, this season? They were the best team in Spain last year. They look the best team in Spain right now. Now, of course, this game, the circumstances were quite peculiar. They played most of this game against 9 men after 2 red cards for Mallorca, and there was that bizarre Ferran Torres goal as well, which generated quite a lot of controversy. But despite all of those caveats, yeah, they're a brilliant team. They haven't made too many changes. Of course, they brought 1 or 2 players in, Marcus Rashford coming off the bench and looking lively, although there's maybe a bit of work there in terms of making sure that his teammates understand his movements and the kind of runs that he makes and making sure they can pick him out. But overall, it looks very similar to the team that was so good last year, but that's because it doesn't need many changes. And like I say, it's much too early to analyse too far, but yeah, they are the team to beat, no question.
Yeah, you say, right, Barcelona fine, Real Madrid fine. As you say, you can't really say too much about that after one match. You can, though, Atleti. Such a disappointing second half against Espanyol. Remember, they were 1-0 up. He made a couple of big substitutions, didn't he, at half-time. Johnny, the US international, coming off. Obviously, Conor Gallagher as well. That made a massive difference to the way in which the game was played. Espanyol come from behind and win 2-1. We talk at length about Diego Simeone being bulletproof almost, Alex, considering what he has done with this club. But even those dedicated fans must be restless when they see this sort of performance in the second half.
Yeah, he is bulletproof to a certain extent, but there is, and I'd say a sizable, maybe it's a minority, but a sizable minority of Atletico fans who do question aspects of his management. And in this case, I mean, the evidence was pretty clear. The team, I think, were playing really quite well. They looked really good in the first half. They looked good for about an hour, and then it fell apart. And as Simeone made more changes, the team got worse. And yeah, I think people are questioning those choices. It's not clear to me why he brought off Cardoso and Gallagher at half time. He said when he was asked about not those changes specifically, but the changes he made throughout the game in general, the sort of things you'd expect to hear in terms of he was looking for fresh legs, to bring new players on, to have a bit more energy. But it didn't work, and they lost their grip on the game. And it was only a 1-0 lead, despite their dominance in terms of the play, and it all fell apart. It's really sort of taken the wind out of their sails, because once again at the start of the season, similar to last year, there was a lot of optimism about all these new players they've brought in. Was it 7 players for the first team in total? And people are really excited, and they have reason to be excited. You know, Alex Baena is a great player. He's picked up a minor injury. He won't be available, I don't think, for this weekend. Thiago Almada and all the rest as well. But yeah, it's not what you want from art to sort of as the sort of presentation of all those signings in the first game of the season to come away with a defeat, and a defeat against a team like Espanyol who did really well, but are a team Atletico would expect to beat.
Alex, I don't know if you heard the start of the show, but I know you're a big Arsenal fan. Frank Leboeuf says Eze's a waste of money. What do you think?
Do you know what, Dan? I was dancing around my living room when that news broke this evening. No exaggeration. I could not stop smiling. Now, a lot of that is because we've nicked him from Spurs, and this is one of the funniest transfers for years. I think you've got to go way, way back to Sol Campbell back in the day to find a transfer as funny as this. But no, look, I think he's a brilliant player, and I think there are questions about where he fits into the team, because the obvious gap is on the left, and that's not necessarily where he plays. But when you look at Arsenal last year and what they lacked, it was in spark and creativity and players who can score goals and can create goals, and we know that he can do that. So I'm very, very, very happy.
Do you want to tell Spurs fans your Twitter handle, your Instagram handle, your address, your email, in case they want to get into contact with you, Alex?
No, none of that. They can send it your way if you want. You can pass it on to me, Dan.
Oh, no, I've had enough of that. I have to pass on to Stevie. Don't worry about that. Any more on my plate. Alex, thank you very much. Just a reminder, La Liga, of course, continues this weekend. Friday sees Real Betis take on Alaves. Saturday, we've got a double-header for you as Atleti take on Elche, followed by Levante against Barcelona. Then the late game on Sunday, Sid Lowe in attendance as his beloved Oviedo take on Real Madrid.